All right, and we are live.
We're live.
7 o'clock prime time. I got Derek Evans in here, so I'm excited to bring you onto the hot seat, man.
JB, what's up, man?
And
I've been in quarantine for too long. I look like a ghost. I need some sun. See this?
Well, you do have the Super Mario Brothers in the background, so I think that wins it all.
My man, right there, Mario.
You're bringing me back to the old school, as we like to say.
Yes.
I have to teach my kids about this whole Mario Brothers thing. They're all into like Roblox and all kinds of other things out there. So
yeah, get the NES, man. They remade it a few years ago. It's like this big, and it has like 50 of the old games on it. All 3 Marios. Awesome.
Really?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll kind of get started as people are starting to chime in. If you have any comments or questions for Derek or myself, you can go ahead and put them in the comments. They're live, and I'll bring them up on the screen. And you can pose a question to us, and we'll try and answer it if it's a good one. No, I was kidding. We'll answer in general. So, but kind of we're talking about some important topics tonight, which I think are very important from anybody in San Diego or around kind of in Southern California in the lending industry, as well as prices. And I think it's important because there was something that came out today that, let me bring this onto the screen.
Always hit me with news.
Oh, with the news. Bring it onto the full screen. And then I'm going to take this away and do it like that. So this came on by CNBC today, talking about the top markets that are going to likely experience the sharpest drop in home prices during this pandemic, which we all know is going to extend well beyond us getting back to work. So I did see this, and San Diego, as well as parts of Southern California, are the main ones listed as likely to experience that, and we're already seeing it. So I think that's an important factor because we are seeing it in our markets, and it's something.
What did the article say about San Diego? Did it give you any specific information?
It did. It talked about because you've seen the affordability index, of course, and the lack of affordability, for that matter, over time, kind of getting to that flex point. And now you add in this pandemic, and then you add in the loss of jobs and all the other kind of things that come along with it, and it's ripe for some pretty decent declines. So,
yeah. I mean, I think every market is vulnerable, but no offense to CNBC or Diana Olick, but she doesn't give me very much to use, much very valuable information.
What do you mean, man? You know, this is CNBC. Just kidding.
CNB, who cares? I mean, the problem is
you get some wet wipes in there. So.
Look at that. How ridiculous. What a terrible photo. Goodness gracious. Get it together, guys.
I love it.
A lot of the information that comes out on CNBC is very generalized, very hypothesized. I don't give it too much credence. I do frequently, and back in the day when I was on the radio every day, I frequently destroyed their articles on the air just for the ambiguity and lack of specificity when it comes to things like this, where the information comes from, and also what are we talking about? Are we talking about the county as a whole? Are we segmenting price points? As you know, JB, you work at a much higher price point than I do. I'm a VA guy. I work with people who are veterans, a lot of active duty, people who have served the country before. My price points are usually sub 700,000, and I'm in a bidding war every single time. We're losing out on houses every day. So I think I'm in a little bit of a different world than if I were you and I was working, $1.5, $2, $3 million homes, where financing has gotten dramatically difficult, or more difficult, I should say. Rates have gone up. So if we talk about the county as a whole, will we see price depreciation potentially, but if the highest priced homes are the ones that are going to be affected the most by what's happened so far, which is the case, then that would make sense. But you're still going to have, but that would also be somewhat misleading to people who are looking at $500,000 houses thinking, well, they'll be worth $450 here in just a few months.
Right. Yeah. And I would totally agree with that. And it is more in the higher price points right now. We are.
What are you seeing though in that front? I would love to know what your thoughts are
right now. Yep. About 5%. We're seeing reductions all over the place in the luxury market. As the real sellers, obviously the sellers that don't need to sell, they've just pulled their homes off the market. So that's why you've seen the drop in the listing inventory across the board, especially in the luxury market. But anybody who's on the market right now that's selling in this environment is a real seller. and then every buyer is a rural buyer, or they're trying to steal, right? They're trying to get the COVID discount, as we like to call it. And it's legit. I mean, I'm dealing with it right now. I mean, they're like, oh, I want 20% off. I'm like, we're not there yet. I don't know if we will get there, but we are seeing 5% pretty consistently across the board on some price adjustments in the luxury game above $1 million plus in San Diego right now.
Okay, so that's the magic number for a price adjustment. 5%?
Yeah, and, I would say, and some people say it's an adjustment. I would say it's probably adjusting to the present value.
Okay,
if you want to call it that, because this is a luxury game, so some things tend to get overpriced as well. So maybe it's just a reflection in, hey, we're just going to actually price now to the net present value of the marketplace. So, but we are seeing that consistently around that 5%. A lot of the price adjustments on the MLS in that luxury price point.
Have we gotten to a point where we're seeing multiple price reductions? Because that's really the big question. If I price reduce my house and it sells, then okay, I aimed a little high. But
right.
if I'm price reducing 2-3 times and it's still not moving, then that's something to be worried about.
And that is happening in the luxury game.
That's definitely not good.
I mean, it is what it is, but we are seeing that. And every market's a little bit unique, but in that luxury game, we are seeing those prices adjust and coming down multiple adjustments.
So when we say luxury game, are we talking, where do you define it? Because when I first moved to San Diego, it was $1 million was luxury.
Yeah.
We still say million? Is that the?
Yeah, that's kind of beginning luxury in San Diego. And then I'd say you get into the $1.5 million, $2 million, $2.5 million, that gets into the more luxury game. But anything above $1 million, I mean, that's a lot of money. So.
True, but I mean, like, for the thing about $1 million in San Diego is that, I mean, if you give me a briefcase with $1 million cash, and so you have to buy real estate with it. This is always the big question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with it? Because you got options, right? Like, you could go waterfront in certain areas, maybe not detached, but you could get waterfront property for $1 million. You go to Mount Helix and get a stunner. You could go to Fallbrook and get an estate.
Yep.
You have a lot of options with the $1 million. I think that's the thing that gets really tricky when you're in the luxury game, when you're in that $2 to $3 million. It's like, man, you can buy a lot of real estate for that amount of money. You have a lot of options always. And if that is becoming more so the case, then I could see where buyers may want to go, let's see what happens here. Let's take a step back, because truth be told, if I were a luxury buyer right now, I would be taking a step back. Whereas if I'm a VA $550,000 buyer, I'm just hoping that I don't only have to beat 5 people instead of 10 for this house.
Yeah, and you're right. In the more traditional price points, that game, there's just not enough inventory, and there's plenty of buyers in that market right now. So that hasn't changed, I don't think, at all. But let me pose this question to you.
Okay.
Let's presume I'm self-employed.
Okay.
And I need to go get a loan, and I can't necessarily go through the traditional routes. What are my options? I know we've heard about the non-QM stuff. Yeah. So kind of define what is non-QM.
Yep.
And who would that apply to, the type of borrowers that you've kind of seen that apply to?
Yeah, best way to describe non-QM is that there's a certain standard that was set by Dodd-Frank, and oh, there it is. Oh, wow.
So I had to bust it up. We got a gold mic, baby.
You got the claw. I've got something. I actually have Mama Shark's glass tonight. I borrowed her koozie.
You do?
So qualified mortgage is, basically a standardized mortgage that's been set up. Usually you're seeing, a QM loan and there's QM jumbo loans too. And that's really what's still alive, in your space is hey, I can go into Wells Fargo, a Chase, and I can get a qualified mortgage. I can give you a qualified mortgage too. I can't compete with the rates that you can get at those places, especially if you have assets there. I can beat their turn times and service 1 million times over, but you're going to get the better rates in those locations. But they're also tightening up what they're doing. What's non-QM is when you have someone who has I'll give you an example. The most recent jumbo loan I tried to execute, was very complicated because the borrower's wife had a property, which he was not on title, but the foreclosure process was started 5 years ago. They caught it back up, actually paid it off. And because the foreclosure process was started, it was considered to be non-QM. It's considered to be a foreclosure. That's the way they looked at it. It was considered to be non-QM, and nobody would touch it. And the best that we could find was 30% down, 5.25% on a 5-1 arm. And while, historically speaking, that doesn't sound like terrible financing for the sake of what, you were looking at a QM jumbo loan at 3.25 or whatever, it looked really, really bad. So that's the marketplace where financing has gotten really difficult, because a lot of those luxury buyers, JB, they are self-employed. They have quirky income. They are trying to not pay taxes. They are not setting themselves up to be easy borrowers, from a mortgage lending standpoint. And therefore, a lot of them may get locked out. They may get put in mortgage jail, essentially, because a lot of these programs are going away. The reality is there's just no appetite in the secondary market, JB.
Yeah, and perfect example is I had to make 2 recent offers on properties in the La Jolla and PB markets, whereby the borrowers were needing jumbo financing, and they weren't your traditional, sitting in a nice little box type borrower, but they were good borrowers. They just weren't like the perfect that's going to sit maybe in a Wells Fargo box or a Union Bank type box. So can't get them a loan. So I had to write the offer with seller carry. So we're doing some unique, we have to. If sellers want to sell their house, we're going to have to start getting creative if it gets bad enough to where maybe you got AITDs that come back, right? And you get seller carries that come back and some other unique financing methods in that luxury game. We'll wait and see. Do you foresee it coming back in the next 3 months, 6 months? I know it's all relative to how long this goes and how long it takes to kind of get that stability back in the lending industry. But it's a big ticket for the luxury game, where your jumbo markets borderline shut down, your non-QM markets borderline shut down. It's causing some problems. And maybe that's why you're starting to see those prices hit in the luxury spot.
For sure. Yeah, you're definitely going to. You take buyers out of a marketplace, you take demand out of a marketplace, there's only one place where prices to go. And, unless you're in sort of the market that I'm in, that lower market, sub 700, where there's so many buyers there, you could take half of them out and you still have a bidding war on every property. But the real issue is that this all revolves around bonds, right? So the crash of 08 all revolved around bonds. So at the end of the day, the bond game is the big ticket, and it determines everything. In 08, the reason we crashed is because Wall Street basically fraudulently bought the bond rating agencies. So they would mark all these bonds that they were making, these mortgage bonds, as AAA rated, which they were not AAA rated. They were, in fact, probably C or D rated bonds. They were marking them AAA, and that's what got us in trouble. So what you're seeing now is actually healthy, and this is why I'm happy about it, because although we're seeing those bonds, which are of the higher price point, it's the high-end bonds where there's a loss of appetite, JB, because people want to diversify their investment. If I'm going to buy, $1 million worth of bonds, I'd rather have 4 bonds for $250,000 than 1 for $1 million. Because if I have 1 foreclosure, I'm still going to be okay. I lose 25%, but if I have 1 foreclosure over here, I'm sunk. So and that's a very simplified way to explain it. But the concept is, hey, let's get more units so that we can spread our risk out. So the appetite, and the reason that's happening, the appetite's not there because the foreclosure concern is present. And foreclosure concern becomes present into a bond marketplace, a mortgage bond marketplace, people will scurry. And this is even happening in VA, man. In the conforming VA limit, so a VA loan under $510,400, rates are about a percentage point lower than they are above $510,400. So I've never seen a disparity like that between the two. In fact, our high balance VA just a few months back was better priced than our conforming balance. And we were asking management, what's going on? How is this possible? Now it's flip-flopped in a major way. It's appetite for the bonds. The bond market controls it all. And when the bond market is concerned about foreclosures, they want to get paid for the extra risk they believe they're taking on. That's why rates are going higher. And I think you're going to see that until we get a clear picture of what the foreclosure fallout is going to look like. And that can properly get priced into these bonds. Until then, it's just going to be.
That could take clearly the remainder of the year.
You think so?
It could. I don't know. You say the fallout, it takes time, right? For people to, there's forbearances and all the other things that are going on. So post-COVID, people actually get back to work, hopefully still have a job and can pay their mortgage or rent or whatever it may be. And then you get into, well, if they're not paying it, can they catch back up their foreclosures or their modifications? I mean, what happens with that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think that it will take time. And that's the reason why I believe that we're in a stronger position this time. Because first of all, the bond rating agencies aren't paid off. See, if we were like 08, everything would just be running full speed right now. Even though there's red flags all over the place, we'd still be making these non-QM jumbo loans at 3% and so on and so forth. And we'd still be going full speed for it. So it's actually a good thing, JB, that the market has properly priced this in such a way that the bond rating agencies are correct on this. In fact, the investors are pre-doing it before the bonds have even been downgraded in most cases. So we're a much smarter marketplace now, which makes it much safer. And I do think it would take, at least 6, maybe 9 months minimum just to see where we're at. And by then we could be back in full steam. So if it's believed yeah, we could be turning the corner, but it's going to take time. I mean, they open the bars up tomorrow. Everybody's not just going to run out and go grab a bite to eat. It's going to take time. It's going to take a little time, and which means the people who work there may still have a job, but they're not going to be making as much as they were before. And it'll take time for that ramp up, which could last through the end of the year. But if the light is at the end of the tunnel, we've got a very optimistic market. We've got a stock market that still wants to go higher right now.
That's nuts, by the way. And speaking of which, since you're moving on to the next topic here, this one. Did you see this proposal?
I've seen a bunch of proposals, yes.
I mean, excuse my, but what the, I mean, I honestly, I gasped at air when I saw that. I didn't know what to do because I was like, what in the world is this?
You want to buy votes, JB? How do you do it?
Well, I'm just wondering, do they want the US dollar to collapse?
Do
they want the world reserve currency to long? Because I mean, that's what'll happen. I mean, if you actually turn into this, I mean, do they understand what this actually does here?
I don't know if anyone does anymore, because technically the things that have taken place so far, we already should be, you've heard the inflationary stories. It's going to take a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread, right? We've already spent enough money that we should be there. I don't know if inflation, because at the end of the day, the value of the currency is what we all agree upon. So
right, but you got to keep in mind the only reason that we are able to print and do what we did in 08, 09, and 10 and so forth is because we were the world's reserve currency. And essentially all they were doing is printing the money out of the treasury to then turn around and pay themselves again, to then print the money out of the treasury to turn around and pay themselves again. It wasn't getting into the economy as fast. So the V, right, the velocity of money into the system was not moving, right? And therefore inflation, and then the Fed's got to come behind it, raise interest rates, and then poof. So you do this, hey, let's give everybody $2,000 a month, right? Or let's give everybody 20, 30,000. I mean, all this stuff, or let's stop rent, stop mortgages, I mean, do they have any idea what would happen? I mean, you're not going to have to worry about a virus if you do that.
Yeah.
You're going to need a gun. No, I'm not kidding. Like, it will literally, you talk about civil unrest. I'm not kidding. It may get that bad if you start doing stupid stuff like this.
It's already getting that bad. There were rallies all weekend all over the country where people are ready to open things back up. People are pretty pissed off. The unrest is beginning.
Yeah.
Which has a lot to do with, I think, people who are suffering economically and also people who believe this is all politically driven. And, that combination can be quite dangerous, frankly. But, will something like that ever happen? No, it won't. Will people propose things like that on a regular basis so they can go on the campaign trail and say, I'm trying to fight for you guys and they won't let me? The big bad president won't allow this, or whatever, rhetoric they're going to throw out there? Of course. But you can take that about as seriously as you can Diana Olick's stories on CNBC.
Oh man, I love it. No, and you just hope it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, I'm okay with the PPP and the EIDL and those programs because they're all going to be served correctly to pay payroll that would otherwise already be there. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's necessarily pushing velocity into the system. But you start basically saying, hey, no more rent for 12 months. Or, hey, don't pay your mortgage for 12 months. So then what happens, right? It goes to the bank who has to take on that burden, or it goes to the landlord that has to take on the burden. Then they got to turn around and go to their lenders and all the forbearances. Then it just moves up the chain. And then the government basically has to come in and save the day again with another $5 trillion stimulus.
It's a terrible idea for so many reasons. And most importantly, and this is part of the reason with the mortgage forbearance is dangerous, is because people get used to, when you create a new status quo, it can cause problems. I mean, if I were to say, hey, listen, JB, you don't have to make your car payment for the next 12 months. On the 13th month, when you do, all of a sudden that car seems really expensive. Right? Like, oh man, I kind of got used to that. I really don't want to have to make this payment anymore. So you create a new norm, and that's a very dangerous thing to do in any circumstance. Like, you would much rather, it's very difficult, like, especially with companies who like try to give away, the product for a certain period of time and then they want you to pay for it. Even if you're enjoying using it, you don't like it. It's a bad thing once you have to start paying for something that you're used to getting for free. So I don't think that any of those things are actually a good idea. But I do think there could have been more creative ways if, Congress were a little bit more plugged into the reality of what's going on, that they could have done it. But at this point, it is what it is. And the PPP and everything that has to do with the payroll stuff is tremendous. I think it's great. They're going to fund more. There's going to be a few $100 billion more, I think, that'll come into that, which is needed. And I think people should utilize it. Absolutely go out there and apply for it if you need.
No, I had somebody the other day that, they said, oh, I'm not going to take any of the PPP or the EIDL. And I said, are you a moron? I said, why would you not? Because you're going to kick yourself. And then, why would you not do that when it's to help fund your business, which has been shut down by a government that needs you at home, right? It's not like the economy's changed and you're trying to go get, you took advantage of a system and you're trying to go get some money. Like, you literally were told, stay home, shut down your business and have some fun, or don't pay any bills, or whatever the heck it is. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So yeah. I've got a comment coming in here from Jackie. I'm bringing you on the screen, Jackie. So the luxury market here in San Diego has gone down 5%. Are you predicting a much higher price reduction over the next few months? I wouldn't say it's gone down 5%. We're seeing adjustments in that ballpark right now on price reductions. Doesn't necessarily mean as a whole it's gone down, but we're seeing it pretty consistently across the board and happening multiple times. So to answer that question, do I foresee it going down in the next few months? It's all relative to jobs. I mean, we all know how this game works. It's a real simple mathematical formula. If people have jobs and or the perception of good paying jobs or good paying income, they buy houses. If they don't buy houses. And so even though right now you don't have that much inventory on the marketplace, that's true, right? But that inventory sits, okay? More people lose jobs. And then post-COVID, what happens is all the people who are sitting off the market or pulled their homes off the market, now that stuff's going to start coming on. And now you don't have anybody to buy them because they don't have jobs, right? So what happens? That inventory kicks up. Now supply exceeds demand. So what happens?
You think that's going to happen?
Very possible.
Really?
Very possible. Yes.
I'm going to disagree with you.
All right. Debate.
So
Jackie, as a realtor, I see what's happening. I'd be very surprised if we don't see price adjustments down.
Yeah, I think 2020 will end up, when you look at the end of the year, 2020 year over year against 2019, we're going to see prices went up in San Diego. I think it's going to be a positive year. And it may not be by a lot, but I think we'll be in the green. And the reason is because a lot of the things that would normally negatively impact us are in really, really good shape. We've got really high rents, which helps promote homeownership. We've got people who have a lot of equity in their homes. So the mass, amount of sellers, I don't see where that's coming from. And that's what it would take. It would take a tremendous amount of people deciding to sell their home and either leave California or, decide to become renters. I don't know what they would do that would make sense.
Once again, it all comes down to the economic fallout and how bad this gets. And we haven't even touched the economic fallout, Derek. You know that.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Kind of tipping along at the top of the iceberg. Everybody's holding on to the railings like this for the month of April, right? Waiting for May to come so we can start to open things up, hopefully, slowly. But the economic fallout isn't going to start to really be seen until you get into May, June, July. And it's all relative to really how long this goes and how long the masses are out of work or not generating sufficient incomes. Forbearances and mortgages and rents and all the things start to kind of settle in. Who knows, man? But it's all about the jobs. I mean, we're running 5 to 7 million a week, as you know. We're running 5 to 7 million jobs a week, which is unprecedented. And at this rate, if it continues at that rate, which who knows if it will, we will have about 40 to 40 million plus people unemployed by mid-May.
That's really possible. Yep. That's
and there's 155 million people in the workforce. So do that math.
It's a big chunk.
That's a lot of chunk. It's 30+%, right? Is that right? Or no, less than 30%?
Yeah, no, it's a huge chunk. They're saying 25% unemployment is realistic, and that we could get as high as 34%. Those numbers would be pretty catastrophic if we actually get to those numbers. We already saw a decline last week in the acceleration.
So I'm hopeful. I think there's another round coming, unfortunately, because you had a lot of small businesses. You have a lot of even large businesses that are holding on for dear freaking life. And they're waiting for their PPP, right? They're just holding on. They're furloughing some people. They're just like, we'll get things rolling in May. We'll get back to work. That's the hope. But if things stay shut down, I'm telling you, man, you think 2008 was bad.
This will never be that bad. There's no way. But it could be really bad.
I hope you are right. I'm just telling you that if we are in the exact same situation that we are today, April 20th, 2020, that's 4/20/20, by the way.
That's true.
That's true. That is 2 4/20s, by the way. I guess it's horrible. But if we are in the exact same situation a month from now, May 20th, and we haven't opened things back up or started to open things back up, get ready, baby.
Hey, are you having trouble finding toilet paper anymore?
I was lucky enough at Costco. I literally went in there at the perfect time about a month ago, and they had just delivered a pallet. And I'm like walking around Costco, and I look, and I'm like, oh my God, that guy has a whole thing of toilet paper. And I'm like, where did he get it? And then you just see like a bunch of people going to like the back corner, like where Costco's at. I'm like literally hauling ass with my cart. And I got one of the last, they had I got there at like 3, they ran out of 5.
Wow. So I go to Ralph's here in Carmel Valley, Delmar Highlands, about 3 or 4 times a week. And the last 6 or 7 times I've gone, there's been toilet paper. So I'm going off the toilet paper indicator here, JB. As long as people have TP,
oh Jesus,
we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. That's a great sign.
Oh man,
because it's the unrest, right? It's the sentiment that's at danger. The sentiment gets negative, and then problems start to cascade from that. There is economic issues. We are going to see fallout from that. We are going to see problems from that. We are going to see issues with that. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But we're in a good position to deal with this situation if we can nip it in the bud here. Hopefully, you're going to start to see, I believe that there's already deals in place for MLB, NHL, NFL to begin their seasons. There's already protocols in place. They're already setting it up to say, this is how we're going to begin. We're going to begin with no fans in the stands. We're going to build it for TV, but we're going to start getting things back to normal. That will do a lot. I was just thinking that I don't watch ESPN. I don't have television, but I was just thinking today, what is on ESPN right now?
Oh, the Michael Jordan documentary. Did you watch this thing?
I didn't because I don't have it, but I went to my app. I have ESPN Plus, but I don't have ESPN because I like MMA.
It came out last night. Was it last night? They aired the first 2 episodes of a 10-part series on Michael Jordan. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wait till you watch this thing.
I will watch it because I grew up, I watched Michael Jordan. I lived in Illinois, and I could watch the Bulls on 5 different channels. There are only 33 channels in the whole television set, and I had 5 channels with the Bulls games on them. So I watched every single one of those games, regular season, playoffs, the whole shebang. Huge Jordan fan. In fact, the next thing that's going to go up behind me once Mario's done is going to be a Jordan mural.
Yeah, it is pretty incredible. I think they have tomorrow episodes 3 and 4 coming on, and it's well worth the watch, man. Yeah. Holy cow. It's incredible.
I'm a big Rodman fan too. That guy was a workhorse, and I just loved it. He was a weirdo, still is. But, he's such a workhorse. I admired that, that he would just go out there and just.
He was a workhorse. He is a workhorse, and I have a lot of respect for him too. But it's pretty incredible what they did. It's, I guess, it's the old school version of the Patriots.
There you go.
In a different sport, but pretty incredible. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I got to tell you, I'm optimistic because I'm just antsy because we've got to get things rolling, right? And slowly. It doesn't have to be. We know it's going to happen on a rolling effect. That's fine. But I'm telling you, man, if we are literally sitting here 1 month from now, exactly like this, locked down in the exact same scenario, the civil unrest you're talking about, right, that you're concerned with, it's going to start in the poor neighborhoods. You already see the protesting, which isn't that big of a deal. But the minute people can't get necessities, right, food, right, basic water, they run out of money because they haven't got their stimulus or they don't have their, PPP or their EIDL or whatever it is, and they start running out of money. And then what do you think they're going to do? You're going to start to see a riot. You're going to see a looting of a store, and it's going to start in the poor neighborhoods. The media is going to catch it. It's going to go on CNN and CBS and ABC and all those channels. And then it just starts to exacerbate itself. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but they've got to understand the sense of urgency. Don't be morons. This is an important issue with COVID, but we have got to get things rolling slowly, or you're going to worry about an economic collapse beyond anything your wildest imagination can think of. Don't be stupid. Put on some masks, clean your hands, take care of social distance, all the guidelines, start getting back to work. Because otherwise the death count from a depression will outblow COVID times 10.
Yeah. I mean, you're right about several things there, especially the sentiment and the protests which began this weekend. Unfortunately, I think those are going to continue to grow, and they're going to happen every weekend. They're going to happen more often. And that's what we really have to look out for, because that could really cause some problems. So that's what I mean when I talk about sentiment. I don't think this is a poor neighborhood problem though, because if you look at the United States as a whole, we have, I think, 47% of the population is on food stamps, just food stamps.
Really? Is it that still that high?
Yeah, it's really high. And so, and you can look this up. What is it? Debtclock.org, I think it is.
Yeah, I got that.
And it gives you the numbers. So a lot of the people in the poorest neighborhoods are on government assistance, and that's not going away. That's not really where I see the biggest issue. Where I see the biggest issue, JB, is in middle class, the left out chunk of, the people who don't qualify for a stimulus check, but they lost their job because, they made too much money, right? Or whatever it may be. The people who slip through the cracks, like, oh, well, they'll be okay. They make $100,000. Yeah, but they also have a $3,500 mortgage and, kids in school. It's the people in the middle or lower middle where you're going to see the biggest issues. So I don't think we'll have, the rioting that you might expect if it were something where the government said, hey, no more government checks are going out. That would cause a serious riot in the poorer communities. I don't think we're going to have that because a lot of those checks are still coming in. And, while some people still may lose jobs and there may be hardships there, I'm not saying there aren't, but I don't think that's where you're going to get the riots from. You're going to get the riots from the people who are harder working Americans who are fed up.
Kind of the blue collars, yeah.
And husband and wife both lost their job and they're ready to go back to freaking work.
Yeah. I agree with that. So let's think positive.
Yeah.
Not negative. I am optimistic. I do believe that they're working hard to get things, slowly moving back, and hopefully here in California that can happen too, slowly, and other parts of the country, and get this country moving again, so people can start earning revenue and keeping the jobs going, and that way we don't see kind of these collapses all over the place, and kind of steamrolling effect. That's the whole steamrolling effect. So
right.
Anything you want to add before we sign off here? We're at about 30 minutes right now.
The most important thing is,
look at if you guys want to see Derek, right? You go to
Smarter San Diego. My YouTube channel is doing pretty good. You look me up there. Just look up my name.
That's a good question. What is your YouTube channel? Is it Derek Evans or Credit Guy or what?
Yeah, it's just Derek Evans. I have my nickname is Smarter San Diego because some people look me up that way. But it's just Derek Evans. So we publish a lot of content there, promote a lot of content there, and mostly around this stuff that you and I are talking about right now. Just kind of letting people know what's going on. We show a lot of graphs and just different things like that to let people see for themselves what the heck is happening. And I try to keep everyone updated on the things that I know about, the things I'm getting inside information about. But I think the most important thing for everybody right now is to just continue to be, I hate the word consumer, but continue to be a good community participant. In times like these, look for ways to, go and order, food from the place that's pretty much shut down, the restaurant that's owned by mom and pop. One of my favorite ones is Plumeria. It's in Encinitas and University Heights. That's a mom and pop owned, vegetarian Thai shop. It's got the best food I've ever had. You can order food and pick it up. Just think about different ways that you can participate in what's going on. Don't recluse yourself too much. I understand everybody's looking to save money here and there, and that's totally cool. But, see different ways you can continue to participate in the economy, because the real issue that we have in the shutdown is there's a lack of participation in the economy because it's not been made convenient. It's been much more convenient to just not participate in the economy. So if we can all just say, hey, listen, every day I'm going to take one step to make sure that I go out of my way to participate in the economy, that'll go a long way. I
would agree with that. And I even helped out with the Feeding San Diego, with the food bank. Even if it's $5, it's $5, guys. It's not a matter of the amount. It's the effort. And you can go on their website, food, I think feedingsandiego.com, and $5. You see the lines going. It's incredible. People getting the food boxes and stuff, which is well needed, and $5 can go a long way. So
sure can.
I would recommend that.
They can feed from what I understand about the food bank, because I've done many events with them, they can feed like 4 people per dollar that you donate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's incredible.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
Okay. Good to know. So you're saying I fed 20 people?
I think so. I believe so, man.
I like it. All right, everybody. Appreciate everybody chiming in, and we'll share this around. And Derek Evans sign off, and you can find him on YouTube, Instagram, and all of that fun stuff. So I appreciate you coming on. Really, thanks, you're a huge value of information, and go enjoy Mario Brothers and your kiddos.
I will. Thanks, buddy.
Take care.